First off, again, just so it's cataloged in the news segment, my dear beloved Wake Forest Demon Deacons are in the College World Series, hopefully making their way to the final last two teams to duke it out for the championship. So if I seem a little off or distracted tonight, it's only because I have a TV off to my right, checking in for the score every now and then. But tonight, let's talk about a couple things that are going on in the news world. First, there was a bill that was introduced just last week to help veterans and chronic healthcare conditions. This bill was introduced by several legislatures, actually 13 to be exact. The bill is titled Improving Whole Health for Veterans with Chronic Conditions Act. This particular act is actually focused heavily on oral health management for patients, specifically looking at its connection with diabetes and cardiovascular disease. They're hoping to release the program out to the veteran population. And for those oral healthcare providers who are willing to participate in the program for the 4-year study and run that it will last, you may be eligible to receive student loan reimbursement. So this is definitely something that we'll be watching. I've treated veterans in our practice for quite some time. I know others in our community have done so as well. It's such an underserved area of our population. So really glad to see some support coming out for them. In addition, we've talked a lot about medical loss ratio, and I've tried to give you updates on states that have added that particular legislation that will be discussed in the upcoming months. Certainly that will likely come up in this next round of voting in November of this year and also in November of 2024. It looks like right now that we have 12 states that have introduced new legislation for the medical loss ratio to come up and be voted upon in this next election cycle. A lot of that has to do with the success of the Massachusetts ballot question 2 that happened in November of 2022. Some other interesting things came out of New Mexico. They've also added a prior authorization reform, allowing designation of benefit, banned payment by virtual credit card, and restricted third-party network leasing. If you're not familiar with the virtual credit cards, some companies require that they are allowed to pay the EOB allotment to the provider through a virtual credit card, which has fees attached to it as well. And they're trying to eliminate that so that they can get the full value of the reimbursement through the EOB and EFT that's being provided. It looks like Illinois and Minnesota are also bringing forth legislation to prevent the virtual credit card payment option as well. So if you weren't aware and you get those from time to time, in most states you can opt out of that particular payment method. So if you haven't done so yet and you're tired of getting those virtual credit cards and the fees associated with them, go ahead and make sure you contact your providers to let them know, or your networks that you're working with to let them know you do not wish to be paid in that method anymore. And most states will allow you to be able to do that. But there are other states that are having to put it in actual legislation form. The last thing that has come up over the last couple of weeks, we've talked a fair amount about DSOs and, their market share, et cetera. I do think it was sort of interesting to see some of the leaders in DSOs. A lot of us know about Aspen Dental and Heartland as being some of the top DSOs in the country. But we also have a few that are coming up that are sort of making their way known. One is Specialty Dental Brands. It grew 40% between 22 and 23 by acquiring 101 different practices or gaining in some way, maybe de novo or acquiring. And then a company called Sonrava Health, which has brands like Western Dental, grew by 36% by bringing on 204 different practices. MB2 was also on the list as well, which I know has become a more well-known brand. So just goes to show you the old guard of Aspen and Heartland may have a lot of growing competition in the DSO market space. And with that, that's your news.